What's up guys and welcome to the weekly Q&A, and I'm flying solo today, but make sure to stay to the end of this video to see who won last week's giveaway. For now though, we're gonna just dive into questions. On the heels of the announcement that J.J. Abrams will be directing Episode 9, Shush asks if Lucasfilm playing things safe is a pattern that's just never going to be broken. If you were to look at my comments on all of my videos, you would see that a lot of people just think that Episode 9 is going to be a rehash of Return of the Jedi, and they think that The Last Jedi is going to be a rehash of The Empire Strikes Back, all because The Force Awakens was very similar to A New Hope. I totally get that criticism, but there is a reason that it was so similar. Lucasfilm did play that movie very safe. But you have to remember, this was our first Star Wars movie in 10 years, and whether or not you loved the prequels, you have to admit that they were mostly kind of not warmly received. So they had to kind of shift courses. They had to prove to everyone that they were going to make a Star Wars film that was more in line with what the original trilogy was. And so, yeah, they played it incredibly safe. I will totally concede that point. But they just spent $4 billion to get the Star Wars name. They did need to play it a little safe. They even kind of publicly said that they had the goal of making up a quarter of their what they spent in that one movie. And they did that, but now they can kind of know that they don't have to play it safe. I mean, Rogue One alone, that was a risk. I would say that that's even riskier than a Han Solo or an ObiWan movie. So already they're taking risks. Their first movie was not a risk. Well, I won't even go that far. They did a lot of risky things in that movie. Luke didn't say a word. He didn't show up until the end. The main star of the film was female. Finn being black. I mean, I do think that those were... It shouldn't be considered this way. Having a black main character shouldn't be considered a risk, but if you look at Hollywood, they would consider it one. So I don't think that Lucasfilm is playing every little thing safe, and I absolutely don't think that The Last Jedi is going to be a rehash of Empire, and I don't think Episode 9 is going to be a rehash of Return of the Jedi. And I don't even know why people are just like, oh, well, JJ's involved, so now, like, this movie's going down the tubes, it's just going to be a rehash. That's not all on JJ. That's not his fault. He wrote the movie with Lawrence Kasdan, and while he says that Lucasfilm didn't tell him what to write, they certainly gave him guidelines, and they said, this is our goal with this movie, this is what we want out of it, and he followed those guidelines. So to say now, all of a sudden, that because JJ's involved, Episode 9 is going to be a rehash, that's not fair to the guy at all. And I'm coming from a place where I loved The Force Awakens. Like, I don't care that there were familiar story elements. I loved all the new characters. I can't wait. Like, when they announced that he was doing it, I was like, I'm totally on board, because he did a fantastic job with the first one. So okay, I've rambled on my soapbox for long enough, but my answer to your question is no. I think that by the time of Episode 9 especially, Lucasfilm is going to be able to play it safer. They're going to have four Star Wars movies under their belts. They're going to have Force Awakens, Rogue One, Last Jedi, and the Han Solo movie. And then we're getting... our fifth movie will be Episode 9. By then, they're going to have made back their $4 billion, and they're going to be able to say, okay, well, like, now they're financially able to take more risks. So, yeah, I think the whole playing it safe thing is probably behind us. I think that we're going to see that with The Last Jedi. So, until I see proof that in Episode 9, the First Order is building a second Starkiller base, I'm just going to go ahead and stay optimistic and assume the best. Scott J-Ro wants to know when we can expect another trailer for The Last Jedi and a first trailer for Han Solo. Well, The Force Awakens and Rogue One got their second full trailers on October 13th and October 19th. So I think somewhere in that area makes a lot of sense. October 16th is the return of Star Wars Rebels. Stupendous Wave has been speculating for a while that that's when we're going to get the next trailer. I think that's a pretty safe bet, but we don't have any official word. I just think that somewhere in that mid to late October time is when it'll happen. As for Han Solo, I'm going to guess that they're not going to really start pushing that until The Last Jedi is out. So, complete guess, but it makes sense to me, is that we'll get a teaser at The Last Jedi, and then we might get an actual trailer probably around March, about 2 months before the film is actually released. But again, total guesses on my part. Michael Ennis asks if Luke could have returned to Dagobah in between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi to continue training with Yoda. I really doubt it, because when they first go to Dagobah after Tatooine, Luke says, "I've got a promise to keep," and he's talking about the promise he made at Empire that he would return to finish his training. And then once he's there, he tells Yoda, "I've come back to finish my training." So that neither of those statements are like complete confirmations that he never went back. I could still see Lucasfilm saying, "Oh, he did go back," and those statements don't mean exactly the same thing that I'm assuming they do. But I think that the implication in the film is that he never went back to Dagobah. He's seeing Yoda for the first time in a year. And I think we're going to probably get some stories here and there about Luke and what he did in that year, maybe in the upcoming Luke book that comes out October 31st. So yeah, I don't think he ever went back, but it is possible. Randy Raber wants to know why ObiWan didn't help the Rebels in Star Wars Rebels when Ezra asked, yet in A New Hope he jumped at the chance to help. I think it's all about Luke. At the point in time of Star Wars Rebels, Luke wasn't ready, and Luke and Obi-Wan weren't all that familiar. I mean, Luke calls him a crazy old hermit. He wasn't like best friends with Obi-Wan, so he couldn't just show up and be like, "Luke, we gotta go." But he also couldn't just leave Luke unprotected because he believed that Luke was the chosen one. At the time of A New Hope, Luke and Obi-Wan are experiencing this message together, and he's telling Luke about his destiny. It just made sense. Also, the rebellion's need was much more dire, so I think he kind of had his hooks in Luke a little more, so to speak, and was like, "I could probably convince him to come and we can start his training. It's probably time that we did that." Of course, there was also the convenience, I don't want to call it that, but of Owen and Beru being murdered that throws Luke into that journey. But basically, yeah, it just all comes down to Luke and Obi-Wan not being able to leave him defenseless. Derek Spicer asks if I would rather get Darth Bane or Darth Revan's canon story first, assuming we ever get either or both of them. I think this is the unpopular opinion, but I want Darth Bane first. I've always preferred Bane to Revan. I think he's an amazing character. And what's more, he's just more important to the story. I mean, Bane was a character created by George Lucas. He shows up in the Clone Wars, so he's already got connections to the canon world. So I would like to see him fleshed out first. I still want to see Revan fleshed out, but he just has no connections to canon except that he was almost in the Clone Wars. So I think he falls a little lower down on the priority list. That's it for patron questions. If you're a patron and you didn't see your question answered here, just head over to Patreon where I left you a written response. If you're not a patron, you can learn more by following the link in the description. Just $1 a month will get you access to extra Star Wars Explained goodies like monthly giveaways and audio commentaries for the films, and the combined donations really go a long way in supporting the channel. On to YouTube questions. Star Wars Network asks what my favorite season of the Clone Wars is. Season 5 all the way. I love all of the Darth Maul, Savage Opress, Death Watch, Mandalore stuff. The Lawless is my favorite episode, hands down. And when Savage dies and like all the dark side magic leaks out of him and he turns back into the man that he was before, that's probably my favorite moment of the entire series. So I've got to go with Season 5, but I will say Season 4 is a very close second, only because Season 5 also gave us the D-Squad arc, which I don't like at all. Killian Browder wants to know if General Grievous would have been accepted into the Empire had he survived. We won't know for sure, but My gut tells me no, he would not have. Say what you will about the guy, but I think he had principles, and I think he was on the side of the Separatists for a reason. I don't think he would have been happier with the Empire ruling instead of the Galactic Republic. I think he probably would have even been angrier. So I expect that if he hadn't died, if he hadn't been killed by Obi-Wan, he would have gone to Mustafar with the other Separatist leaders, and Anakin would have killed him there. Khan Family asks why the battle droid voices changed between the invasion of Naboo and the Clone Wars. I don't think we have an in-universe reason for that, other than they just, changed voice box technology. Maybe that voice package was less expensive to manufacture on a large scale like they were. Or maybe the voices we heard in The Phantom Menace were just like Trade Federation voices, and then it was more standardized once they officially joined the Separatists. I just don't think there's a real answer right now, or at least I couldn't find one. Time Travel Pony wants to know why we don't see Commando battle droids in Revenge of the Sith. A lot of droid and Clone Wars questions this week. I like it. I would argue that the Commando droids were built for a very specialized purpose. More covert ops, infiltration, assassination, that kind of thing. And what we see in Revenge of the Sith is more large-scale attacks. So while I'm sure they would have done a great job at those battles, that wasn't their primary function. So we probably had groups of Commando battle droids elsewhere in the galaxy on their own missions. Maybe we would have seen like the Bad Batch fighting a group somewhere. Oliver Piatilla asks why Han, after being frozen in carbonite, was blind, yet in the Clone Wars, we see Anakin and Ahsoka and Obi-Wan and the clones. They freeze themselves, and when they're unfrozen, there don't seem to be any effects. Han was frozen in carbonite for a year, and he was in perfect hibernation, so when he came out, he had hibernation sickness. His eyes just hadn't been used in a year, so they had to adjust. Anakin and the others were not frozen for that long, not nearly as long, so they may have come out and felt maybe a little ill or had some sort of effect, but whatever it wasn't nearly as severe as what Han felt. That's all the time I have for questions today. If you want to leave a question for next week's video, just put it in the comments below, or sign up for Patreon to join our weekly Q&A discussion. Also, last week we announced a giveaway of Lego BB-8 and a couple of other little sets, and the winner of that giveaway is Marco Pieri. So congratulations, Marco. I already sent you an email to get your shipping information and all that, but congratulations on the win, and thank you to all of you who participated and entered. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.